Macarena. Oh, Macarena. Oh, Macarena. Oh, you scared me. Ah, I didn't think anybody else was here. You know what? I'm glad you are here. We've got a lot to talk about. On this installment of PsychRad, we're going to take a far-out field trip back in time to an enlightening day I spent at the Self-Realization Fellowship Lake Shrine. My visit to the Lake Shrine was part of a field trip assignment given to the class by one of our psychology instructors at Brandman. If you're ever in the LA area and you're looking for a mellow place to chill, you should check out the Lake Shrine, its serene meditation gardens, impressive hilltop temple, and its other inner peace-inducing attractions and activities. The following is my personal account of what I experienced while visiting this magical place. My wife and I stepped out of our dusty old Alero and stood and stretched and let the blood flow back into our legs. After the traffic-clogged drive from the canyon to the garden, a bit of stretching felt good. A short time later, the rest of the psych class showed up, and we all made our way into the Lake Shrine gardens. I hadn't been to the Lake Shrine prior to this visit, so I was feeling enthusiastic about checking it out and getting some cool pics. As our instructor, Kim, let us in, she boasted that she was quite familiar with the Lake Shrine and that she was a patron of the place. So it was good to know we had an experienced guide. We made our way down a narrow path which opened up into a vast garden area that was breathtaking to say the least. The entire garden encircled a large pond with a waterfall flowing into it from a craggy, moss-covered rock face. A cacophony of colorful flowers bloomed all around us, and their fragrance filled the air with a bouquet of sweet perfumes. We were greeted by a soft-spoken gentleman who Kim introduced as her good friend Thomas. Thomas rotely delivered a well-rehearsed speech about the history of the Lake Shrine, and we learned from him that a number of Hollywood celebrities and other wealthy financiers had helped considerably in keeping the Lake Shrine afloat. And from what I understood, that was the only reason it still remained in existence and had not been replaced by a strip mall or condominiums. Thomas informed us that the area we were standing in was referred to as the Court of Religions, and that the 5 principal religions were represented here by 5 miniature stone obelisks that sprouted from the garden beds behind him. Thomas then led us down another green garden path to a weather-worn windmill that seemed almost out of place among the Lake Shrine's other more Eastern-influenced design elements. As we entered the old windmill, I was surprised to see that its somewhat claustrophobic interior resembled a quaint old-timey chapel. We sat down among the rows of wooden pews with Thomas sitting facing us at the front of the room like a pastor or a priest giving a sermon. But instead of preaching to us about one specific religion, he instead proceeded to tell us how this was a place where all religions were welcome, and that this was more of a place for meditation and or prayer than it was a pulpit for pious preaching or fiery sermons. Burn! I was eager to hear more because I'd always been interested in learning ways to achieve inner peace and harmony. And I'd heard that meditation could help me to acquire these desired attributes, as well as it being a path to enlightenment. Karma then smiled upon me as Thomas then told us that he was going to teach us how to meditate. As Thomas began to instruct the class on how to prepare the mind and body for meditation, I was reminded of a stress-relieving exercise I had learned in another class called Progressive Muscle Relaxation, which involves pretty much the same method of controlled breathing and body awareness. Then, as Thomas began to verbally walk us down towards a state of mental and physical calmness needed for proper meditation, it reminded me of being hypnotized by a counselor in one of the drug rehabs I was in as a teenager. And just like when I was being hypnotized, I simply followed the speaker's verbal cues and went with the cerebral flow of things. As I descended into a meditative state, I tried to clear my mind of everything, even the fact that I was trying to clear my mind of everything. Clearing my mind was not easy, but after a brief psychic tussle, I was able to clean my cognitive slate and began to effectively meditate. Based partially on Thomas's descriptive monologue and the rest on my own imagination, I began to visualize a small ball of light expanding and receding from within me like a pair of healthy psychic lungs. As the light expanded, it spread out like the dendrites of a neuron, and like a neuron, began to synapse with other neurons, or in this case, other energies. As the light receded, I could feel my own energies strengthening and becoming more in tune with the flow of the universe. I'm not exactly sure how long the meditation went on for, but at some point I remember hearing Thomas's voice again, which gradually led me out of my meditative state. After the group meditation session, we all scuttled out of the tiny windmill chapel and back onto the garden trail. Only now the colors and sounds of the garden seemed more vivid, and the floral bouquet even more pungent and intoxicating than before. It was amazing how much a little meditation seemed to enhance the way I perceived the world around me. And it made me think of how profound an impact meditation could have societally and globally. Thomas then took the class for a tour of the rest of the gardens, and then the group split up and we went our separate ways. But on our way out, my wife Krista and I decided to check out the Fellowship gift shop to search for a souvenir as a tangible memento of our garden trip. Inside the tiny shop was an array of even tinier tidbits from various cultures and religions. I stood for a while in the shop and read from a book concerning cross-cultural issues, while my wife bought a small stone elephant and some incense. And despite the somewhat materialistic conclusion to our outing, I was pleasantly surprised how much I had learned that day, not only about the Lake Shrine facility, but also about myself and my humble existence in our ever-expanding universe. And we ended up getting some pretty cool pics, too.
None of us check there. None of us do there. None of us brother. Smeanders, you see up open up. See that I should accelerate in the back. See the gun.
You know, it's